Leadership clarity isn't just about what you're trying to accomplish. It's about who you are, where you're going, and why it matters. When that internal clarity is missing, everything on the outside starts to wobble. Your confidence, your communication, and your connection with the team. I always say that when a leader lacks clarity, people will feel it, and often long before the leader names it. Unclear leaders over-explain, under-decide, or swing between extremes. Clarity isn't a luxury, it's leadership oxygen. Let me say that again. Clarity isn't a luxury, it's leadership oxygen.
Woo! Yes, leadership oxygen hits hard. And we've heard leaders say time and time again, things like something feels off, or I'm showing up, but I don't know why I'm showing up. It's not working. We also know that this leads to that experience of imposter syndrome. Many people describe it as.
Yep.
We start operating out of this sort of fog because we know we just have to keep stumbling forward, but we don't know where we're going.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Eric? What drives that fog? Why do we find ourselves lost in that fog from time to time?
Because we're human beings. Well, oh my gosh. I mean, for our listeners, just so often the things that we're struggling with, we think they're unique to us. We're especially challenged, nobody else knows what we're going through. And I'm just like, nah. First of all, you're not that special. But really the good news is this is an experience we all have, and not just once or twice throughout. We have this all the time, right? Because life is busy, things are going on, and there's a lot of distractions. We've got a lot of things we're trying to accomplish. And so inevitably, once we have clarity and we start running after something, we're going to have experiences that derail that clarity and lead to that foggy feeling. And I think this is where most people, we can freak out, and we can become incredibly insecure. What you said can often lead to that imposter syndrome, which is really just insecurity, sense of maybe I don't have what it takes, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. But here's the good news, that, the imagery of fog, it does, we live in the Southern California along the San Diego coast. And so we have this marine layer that comes in during certain times of the year. It'll come in at night and it just settles, and it's just like this big blanket. And I remember one time just driving to the airport, traveling somewhere for work. And I'm like, man, the weather sucks today. This is terrible. Gosh, is it going to rain? It just was dark and gloomy. And then we got in the plane and took off. And then minutes later, we rose through the fog, that marine layer. And all of a sudden, guess what was above that? Sunny skies. Always. I'll never forget that. It's just this picture, this reminder to me that we're going to have days, sometimes weeks or longer seasons where we feel that fog settle in over us for a variety of reasons. But here's the good news for us, for our listeners, is that it's temporary. Mm-hmm. It's a season. And guess what? The fog comes and goes, right? And the sun is always shining. Opportunity is always present, but it gets clouded by that marine layer. And then not to mention that, oftentimes what happens is the sun is so powerful that marine layer eventually will burn off by noon. And then you can go to the beach and have a beautiful time. But in the morning, in that moment, you're like, oh no, our whole day is ruined. It's just a powerful, I think, analogy or metaphor or whatever those are. Who knows the difference? Not me. To remind us that whenever we're in those experiences, that fog, number one, is it's momentary. It's temporary. It will pass. And secondly, clarity can be found. It can be discovered as we learn to push through the fog. Doggy, that was good. We can go. I'm in our new podcast studio, by the way. These are the MPWR Podcast studio. Dawn's not in here, but there's going to come a day when she's going to be sitting across the table from me. We're going to have all the cameras, and it's going to be fantastic. But I just want our listeners to know, yeah, we've secured our own MPWR Podcast studio. All right. When you're unclear personally, your leadership becomes reactive. Yeah. Ambiguity drives reactivity. You start leading based on pressure instead of purpose. You start chasing productivity instead of pursuing alignment. Come on, guys, just a little hand clap for the alliterations in what I'm saying right now. And I'm just going to admit it. I did not write this part. Don did. Brilliant. Brilliant. You start chasing productivity instead of pursuing alignment. And that
Mhm.
internal fog is what then drives external chaos.
Yeah, it
And
does.
guess what? The team feels it.
Hmm.
And this is where I think we start to feel insecure and start to overreact. Leaders without clarity often default to busyness, distraction, or overcompensation. As our listeners, please take a moment, pause, reflect. These, if not all of these, are you most susceptible to, and you might even add words to that list. But what they really need, what we all really need in the midst of the fog, is permission to pause
Hmm.
and to learn how to reset so that we can reconnect to what matters most to us. If you don't know who you are or where you're going, then neither will those who are trying desperately to follow you.
It's true. And the interesting the interesting thing that you've been tap dancing around, Eric, is this lack of clarity, which is so
Dancing?
I did.
You did. I've never tap danced, but I'm just imagining myself tap dancing right now. It doesn't look pretty.
Fun fact, I did tap dance from the age of 2 up until about 18. So
Okay. Okay. All right. So you know what it was.
what it looks like. Um, this lack of clarity is so common. It for all of us. In fact, it's something that we're going to experience time and time again in our life because, as you pointed out, life is not linear. We are constantly going to be derailed by the things that life throws at us. But when we are experiencing that lack of clarity, our immediate default is to assume it's a personal failure.
100%.
What is wrong with me that I can't figure out how to lead this team? What is wrong with me that I don't know how to overcome this challenge? And instead, we have some practical tools that will help people navigate through that. So let's kind of dig into that. What does it practically look like for us to be able to regain clarity, especially when we've been adrift for a while, especially when we've been in that fog for a long season? How do we do that?
Well, I would suggest that this is one of the core skill sets that we train leaders in that may have a greater impact on their confidence and courage as leaders than anything else that we do. So what I want to speak to is really reflecting the simple practices of one of our core tools called the Kairos Circle, which we've borrowed from people smarter than us. We've innovated on it to make it more user friendly and scalable within organizations. But it's called the Kairos Circle, and the Kairos Circle is really, I've explained this in a previous episode, but I want to just for our new listeners, I want them to be able to play along. Kairos is a Greek word for time. The one that we're more familiar with is the word chronos, which we get chronological from, right? That's calendar time, stopwatch time. That's linear time, time that doesn't stop. You can't go back. You can't fast forward. It's time that's passing. But the Greek culture understood the importance of identifying significant moments in that chronological timeline that were worth paying attention to, especially the ones that were more derailing of us. Right. So a kairos is any experience that impacts us mentally, emotionally, or physically. And we can have really positive kairoses. We can have challenging kairoses. We can have big ones. We can have small ones. But the ones that I think what we're addressing today are the challenging kairoses, those experiences that derail our sense of clarity, our sense of internal confidence, that cause that fog-like experience where we become overreactive, operate out of insecurity, and it leads to some troublesome behaviors. And so what this tool is designed to do is to cut through the fog.
Yeah.
It's designed to burn that fog away. It's designed to be, that air front that comes in and pushes the fog out, so that it dissipates. That's the whole purpose of the Kairos Circle. And so the first order of business is just identifying this is a Kairos. I'm having an experience that has derailed me, that has caused me to lose sight of my own clarity, right? And secondly, to give us permission that to be humans is to lose our clarity, not once or twice, but oftentimes through the journey of life. Life is constantly changing, ebbs and flows. Nothing's predictable, or very few things are predictable. And so naturally, we're going to get derailed over and over and over again. I like to use the illustration of when you're driving down the freeway, you're constantly, recalibrating your steering wheel to make sure that your car stays in the right lane.
Yeah.
Another imagery is if I hold my arm up, and our listeners can't hear, but imagine I'm holding my arm up as in a vertical position with my fingertips pointed at the sky. That represents this line. We all want to just be on this perfect track, this pathway that never gets derailed, and that we never lose sight of what we're fighting for, that we never lose connection with our kind of internal sense of vision and values and the things that matter most to us, our priorities. But the reality of life is we're going to constantly get derailed. We're going to constantly be pushed to the left gutter, to the right gutter, to the left gutter, to the right gutter. And we can either kind of almost battle against this reality and say, this sucks, and I'm a terrible leader, my environment's terrible, or nothing works in my way, and kind of become victim. Or we can recognize that a part of maturing and taking responsibility for our lives is that this is going to happen. And our opportunity is to learn how to constantly recalibrate. And sometimes there are going to be massive recalibrations because we're going to go through really tough seasons of life. And sometimes they're going to be really minor recalibrations that just kind of gently bring us back into the lane. I know that I've had many of both in my life. And if anybody reads our books or listens to anything we teach, they get to hear the stories of our continual recalibrations. But that's just part of life, is this constant need to recalibrate. So we need a simple tool that gives us permission and a process by which we can constantly recalibrate to get back into the lane that we know we're supposed to be in. We identify the kairos. Hey, I'm having this experience. I feel derailed. I'm not in the lane I think I'm supposed to be in. I'm in a gutter. No problem. What do I do? Well, I need to pay attention. What's going on for me? What's going on in my life? What are the experiences that I'm having that, of this fogginess or this imposter syndrome? Let me own that. What are the prevailing feelings that I'm having, right? Because our feelings oftentimes, they are facts. You don't always get to choose, or very seldom do you get to choose your feelings, if ever. But we have to own them, because if we don't own our feelings, they will own us, and they will just contribute to the fog becoming increasingly more dense and more overwhelming. Then we have to interpret, how do I make sense of this experience, this season of fog? What's contributed to this? What's caused the derailing? Why am I so flustered? Why am I so anxious? Why am I so upset? Why am I depressed? Why am I any experience that we're having? But to really ask the hard question, why am I experiencing this? What can I learn about myself from this experience? And how do I make sense of this particular season, right? And then we got to move to discovery. What am I learning from this experience, from this kairos? And what are my takeaways? Right? What am I learning about myself, my environment, this season? Right? I mean, anybody who has kids for the first time, you're going to be under a fog.
Oh yeah.
I mean, women more than men. You just get ready for that marine layer to come in and settle over you and your marriage and your household and your sleep schedule and your energy levels, and you're going to be radically impacted for a season until those kids are out of their infant years, right? And even then, there's new phases of their development, which is going to mean there's new seasons of being derailed. And how do we still do date nights? And how do we do vacation now? And where are we going to go visit for holidays? Because our families all want the grandkids at their house. There's so many different things that are gonna bring that brain layer back in. And so we need a way of learning about ourselves, our environment, so that we can reconnect. The whole point of this, what we call this first part of the Kairos circle, is to give us an opportunity to reconnect to who we are, to our sense of vision for how we want to live life, to our core values, to the priorities that we believe we need to give our time, energy, and resource to. Because very quickly, when we get derailed, we get distracted and we start, in reactive mode, giving our time, energy, and resource to things that don't deserve it or are not priorities in that season. So we recenter by reconnecting to those core aspects of who we are as people, core aspects of who we want to be as a marriage, as a family, as a team, as a business, as a nation. Somebody please send this to Mr. Donald Trump. But here's the thing. We have to remember that that reconnection to our own personal clarity, our own internal clarity, does not always come with fireworks, right? And sometimes we want it to be this, this amazing therapeutic moment, like what's that movie with Robin Williams and Matt Damon?
Keep Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting, right? There's this powerful moment where they're in there's a bunch of boring sessions, and all of a sudden, boom, it's a fireworks experience. And I love those, and sometimes we have those. But for our listeners, please know that as we reconnect to clarity, especially when we're fighting for this on a daily basis, that it doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's just a remembering of like, oh yeah, that's who I am. That's what I'm about. That's how I want to spend my time. That's what I want to give my attention to. Oh, that's what I want to fight for. And here's the last thing I'll say. It starts with a single brave decision to stop pretending that you're fine. But let me just say this for my listeners. Fine.
Yeah.
Like we are a culture who is enamored with, I'm fine, you're fine, we're all fine. It's okay. We'll be all right. It's no big deal. It'll be okay. We'll figure it out. We'll get through this. And which is fine. Those phrases don't bother me as much as it's almost like this expectation that we're all going to sit around and say, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And then let's just tackle the other extreme while we're here. The people that hide behind the veneer of, I've got all this childhood trauma and I've got all this baggage and all this. Well, yeah, welcome to the party. Welcome to we all do. We all do. So we can't hide behind either veneer of I'm fine, I'll be okay. I just need to pull myself up on my bootstraps and just push on today and pretend like everything's okay. And we can't hide behind the veneer of I'm such a mess, I'll never figure it out. I can't move forward. I'm stuck and I can't get out of this. Right? Those are the gutters on either side of this path that the Kairos circle invites us into, which is to say, we have an opportunity to reconnect to our own personal clarity so that we can live proactively instead of reactively. We can make plans and move in a direction that actually realigns us with the life that we want to fight for, which is what actually brings us, increased fulfillment and reconnects us to a sense of purpose. Now, I've been yapping for a long time, so I'm going to pause here, Dawn. I want to hear from you. What are you connecting with?
Yeah, well, this is the thing that I love about the Kairos circle, is that it does force us into that pause. It does walk us through the contemplation, but it doesn't let us sit there. And as you just said, we tend to have one either contemplation or action be our default. So some of us love to just wallow in our feelings. We love to think about how we're feeling and all of our circumstances all of the time, but that keeps us stuck. Some of us love to jump into action. We don't like to sit and contemplate. We hate pausing. We just want to jump in and come up with a new plan, but that often leads us to somewhere we don't want to be. So the Kairos circle is actually the process that marries those two tensions, right? The contemplation and the action. It allows us to observe, interpret, learn, and then we actually start to plan. What do we need to do based on what we learned?
Mm-hmm.
Partner with to increase our probability of changing our trajectory. And then need to start putting it into practice, right? So if the first half of the circle is all about contemplation and awareness, the second half is how do I lead myself out of this space in very practical, concrete terms.
I love it. I love it. And obviously you and I have thousands and thousands, literally, of stories either in our lives or of clients we've worked with who found themselves feeling not just stuck or overwhelmed, but feeling like there was no way out from underneath that marine layer.
Yeah.
And as they began to process the kairoses, the things that were popping most in their life in that time, it's unbelievable to watch how the marine layer slowly starts to dissipate. The sunlight, those rays of sunlight start to break through, and clarity begins to re-emerge. And more often than not, it's not like some new, I've never thought of this before experience for people. It's more like, wow, I'm reconnecting with who I am, my core values, my sense of vision, mission, purpose, whatever it is. Like I'm remembering who I am and how I want to move forward. That's the clarity that drives the kind of the qualities of confidence and courage that people are longing for, and that really allows people this constant recalibration. And the more we work with leaders, then they learn how to do it for themselves and for their teams and for their organization. And then they just find that they're able to stay in that lane far more often than those overly long detours that they were taking that just took weeks, months, sometimes longer.
Yeah, it makes me think of that scene. Do you remember the movie Hook? So Robin Williams plays Peter. Two Robin Williams references in one podcast episode.
Doggy. Shout out to Robin Williams, one of the best, most creative, most amazing people ever.
So he plays Peter Pan, but Peter Pan has forgotten who he was. And he goes off into the real world and he becomes an adult, and he has lost his connection with this true essence of who he was.
Yeah.
And there's this moment in the movie where the Lost Boys come to him and they help him find Peter Pan again. And they say, "There you are, Peter." And suddenly this whole world, that fog lifts, and this new reality that is really his old reality is just laid out in front of him again. And that is the process that we can experience over and over and over again if we're willing to do the work of rediscovering and reconnecting.
I would suggest this for all of our listeners who love movies and powerful TV shows, but mainly movies, because, movies like usually an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's telling kind of like one narrative, one storyline for the most part. But we all love the great movies because they all in them have these powerful moments where the main protagonist, has this kind of like, we call it, come to Jesus moment, this clarity moment where they reconnect with who they are and what they're fighting for, that gives them then the courage to persevere, to overcome the hurdles, to get the breakthroughs, to get the victory. And we all, yay, stand up in our seats and scream and shout, whatever they are. Karate Kid, Top Gun, Lord of the Rings, and, everything, every movie we love. It has those. Here's the problem. We love those movies, I think, because as viewers, we resonate with this deep desire within ourselves to reconnect to our own clarity. And in the movie, it happens once, and then it happily ever after, the movie ends. Right? But reality is, we can expect that not as dramatic as is in the movies, but we're gonna have opportunities almost every day to practice this reconnection to our own personal clarity that will drive greater confidence and courage. All right, let's jump into some practical application for our listeners. This is amazing. By the way, for our listeners, you guys can go back to the first season. We unpacked the Kairos Circle in greater depth in one of those episodes. Find it, listen to it, love it, learn it. You won't regret it. All right. So some practical application points. I don't think we need to share too many more examples. Let me share one quick example. I thought I was going to move on. I'm not moving on. So here's the thing. By the way, I don't know if you're feeling this, Don, but I feel like as we continue doing these podcast episodes, as we become more comfortable, because I tell you the first ones, I guarantee you sucked, or at least I thought they sucked. As I was listening to myself, you were amazing. I was terrible. But I feel like as we get more comfortable, right, we're putting in our terrain, like our personalities, there's a greater sense of freedom. I feel like our listeners are getting to experience a lot more of who I think we are, which is beautiful, because our content is unbelievable. It's second to none. But, let's be honest, our listeners are listening to us. I know when I listen to podcasts, I start to develop a kind of relationship with those people. I feel like I get to know them when they're authentic and open and vulnerable. And so I just love that we're moving in that direction. So I've been working with this client for a while. An organization brought me in to work with a particular executive, a VP of a particular department or division. And they just said, man, this guy he's just over the past 9 or 10 months become really, he just seems easily annoyed, angered, frustrated. And he's been such a high performer, but it almost, we're not sure if we're going to lose him. We're not sure what's going on. We can't figure it out. Would you spend some time with this person and just, see if maybe creating some space to process kairoses would be helpful. That's what we do as coaches. That's our primary methodology. So got into this call with this person and just started asking him, hey, tell me what's going on. What are the frustrations? What are the pain points? Just tell me everything. So I just said, okay, well, I'd love to just hear more about this one in particular, right? I didn't even teach him the Kairos Circle at this point. I just said, look, just tell me about this one thing that you just feel so derailed by and frustrated by. And what was amazing is what he didn't know is I was just using the Kairos circle as a framework to ask questions that would enable him to process this Kairos through these different steps of the circle. And what was amazing is the marine layer that he had clearly been living under for 9-10 months. You see the first little bit of sun rays peeking through on that first Kairos. And then it was, okay, this is really helpful. How do you feel about this? Well, I feel like I have more clarity about why I'm frustrated about this and what's my responsibility in that. And I was like, okay, well, So then the next week we tackle another Kairos. And then the next week we tackle another Kairos. And the next week we tackle another Kairos. And sometimes the Kairos takes 2 or 3 weeks to process effectively. Sometimes it takes 30 minutes. But the point is, I just kept processing these Kairoses, right? Because you could just tell, I mean, this marine layer he was under metaphorically was thick. It had been building for a long time. But each new ray of sun that was poking through just started to illuminate more and more. And you could feel just in his body language and his posture and his tone of voice as he was showing up to calls each week, you could tell he felt lighter and more free. And it was just so sweet to watch. And then after working with him for about maybe 3 months, I got him a call and he said, Eric, I just need you to know, like, my gosh, I don't know why I'm experiencing this, but I just feel like we've been processing just all this junk going on. I don't even know that we've solved it all or that we fixed anything, as much as I just feel like this has been helping me reconnect to who I am and my part in all this. And it's giving me renewed perspective on what I'm experiencing and has really transformed the way I'm showing up to work. And that's when I said, hey, can I take today's session and introduce you to the tool that I've been using with you? Because I want you to be able to do this for yourself when I'm not around. He was like, oh, are you kidding me? You mean there's a secret to this? You mean there's a tool that you're not giving me? I said, hold on. Well, let me just show it to you. And so I showed it to him and we spent a couple of weeks processing it. And he really learned the tool Kairos Circle. And it's so amazing because I still meet with him, with less frequency. To process Kairoses. But now that he knows the tool, he's like, oh, Eric, I love this. I do this in my marriage and for my spouse, my partner. I do this with my kids. I do this with my friends. And they don't even know I'm using the Kairos circle. I'm just helping them process something in a way that gives them the best chance of reconnecting to their own personal clarity, which is just really powerful. But real quick, practical application. A few things. First of all, the podcast episode on the Kairos Circle, go get our book, Transform Your Trajectory, which is an entire book that unpacks the Kairos Circle. On our website, you can get access to online training courses on the Kairos Circle. Again, it's a tool that you'll never regret learning and applying in your life. But for today, for our listeners, as you're driving in the car, walking on the treadmill, strolling on the beach, or through the woods or a river, wherever you live, I want to encourage you just to take some time to pay attention to what are the experiences of your life that you feel like right now are most impactful for you. And which of those may have you feeling like you're under a marine layer, a big cloudy blanket that is robbing you of the clarity and confidence and courage that you are longing for. I would encourage our listeners to take that Kairos circle and to just walk through the simple 6-step process that, if we do it even half well, is going to begin to allow those sun rays to just start to peek through, will allow us to reconnect with who we are and what we value and what we want to prioritize. And I would encourage them to do that. And if you're still stumbling through it and don't feel like you're getting the results you want, go to our website, MPWRcoaching.com, and book a free call with us. We want to talk with you. We don't care where you are, what your job is, what your role is. We just want to empower you to live a life of greater clarity and confidence and courage. So we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. And it just drives home that reality that we experience time and again, that clarity is not a box that you check. It's not a one and done reality. It is something that you return to time and time again. And leaders who keep returning to it, they're the ones that lead with clarity and confidence. They are the ones that lead their team with a greater sense of courage.
Yes.
Because they know that even when they lose their way, they have a tool that will help them find their clarity again and get them back on the right path.
Yep. Love it. I love it. I love it. Hey, listen, listeners, whoever you are, we love you. We're so grateful that you've joined us for this episode. We care deeply about empowering you to live a life that brings you a greater sense of fulfillment, satisfaction, and purpose. Thanks for tuning in. If you've been leading in a fog, we hope this episode helped you to start clearing that path. Share it with someone who needs a clarity reset, and come back next week as we talk about micromanagement, trust, and control. Bah, 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 bah.